You're about to hear about Thomas Weir, a 7-year-old farm boy from Somerset, England in 1821. Completely ordinary in every way, helped his father with the sheep, played with wooden toys, spoke simple English with a country accent. Until March 14th, when he woke up speaking a language that wouldn't be identified for another 60 years. A language he couldn't possibly know. A language that, according to everything we understand about learning and memory, should have been impossible for him to speak. Thomas lived with his parents, Mary and John Weir, in a stone cottage near Glastonbury. Neighbors described him as quiet, obedient, with brown hair and serious eyes. He'd never traveled beyond the next village. Never attended formal school. His mother taught him to read from the family Bible, nothing more. The local priest, Father Edmund Cross, kept detailed records of the parish children. His notes on Thomas from February 1821. A normal child of average intelligence. Knows his prayers. Helps his family dutifully. On the morning of March 14, 1821, Mary Weir entered Thomas's room to wake him for morning chores. The moment he opened his eyes, he began speaking rapidly in fluid, complex sentences. But not in English, not in any language Mary recognized. She called for her husband. John later wrote in a letter to his brother. The boy spoke as natural as breathing, but the words were foreign, strange on the tongue. He looked at us with confusion when we couldn't understand. Thomas appeared distressed, gesturing frantically, tears streaming down his face as his parents stared in bewilderment. Within days, the phenomenon intensified. Father Cross visited and documented something extraordinary. Thomas drew detailed maps of a coastal city neither he nor anyone in Somerset had seen. He sketched buildings with specific architectural features, dome structures, column temples, harbor layouts. When the priest showed him illustrations from books, Thomas pointed excitedly at images of ancient Mediterranean ports, nodding vigorously. Cross wrote, "The child described the smell of salt air and fish markets, the sound of harbor bells, the taste of olives and honey cakes. He wept, saying he missed home, though he'd never left Somerset." Dr. William Fletcher, the village physician, examined Thomas on March 22nd. The boy's pulse, pupils, and physical responses were completely normal. No fever, no head injury, no signs of illness or madness. Yet when Dr. Fletcher asked him simple questions in English, Thomas stared blankly. He could only communicate in this unknown tongue, accompanied by desperate gestures. Fletcher recorded, "The child's facility with this language is that of a native speaker, not a mimic. He conjugates, he inflects, he uses idioms naturally. This is impossible for one so young, so isolated, so uneducated." Professor James Aldridge from Oxford arrived in early April, armed with reference texts in Greek, Latin, Arabic, Hebrew. Thomas showed no recognition of any of them. Aldridge spent 3 days recording the boy's speech, filling 16 pages with phonetic notations. He wrote in his official report, "This language possesses consistent grammatical structure, complex vocabulary, and linguistic patterns I cannot identify. It is not gibberish. It is not any known European, Asian, or African tongue in my considerable experience. The child speaks it with complete fluency, yet possesses no mechanism by which he could have learned it." On April 19th, Thomas fell silent mid-sentence while describing what he called his other mother. He blinked, looked around his cottage, and asked in perfect Somerset English, "Why is everyone staring at me?" He remembered nothing of the past 5 weeks. The strange language vanished from his mind as completely as it had appeared. Dr. Fletcher's final report listed temporary delirium of unknown origin. The case was quietly filed away. Professor Aldridge's linguistic notes weren't examined again until 1883, when scholars identified fragments of the language as resembling ancient Phoenician, a language not fully decoded until decades after Thomas died. After 5 weeks of speaking a dead language he'd never learned, describing places he'd never seen, Thomas Weir returned to normal and lived an unremarkable life. How does a child access knowledge that doesn't exist in his world? If you've ever experienced memories that aren't yours, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. Subscribe to explore more mysteries where consciousness defies explanation. Sometimes the past speaks through us in ways we'll never understand.